In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the different types of lab equipment that we're going to use this year in lab. So let's go ahead and get started. There's a lot of different types of lab equipment that we're going to use, and we need to make sure that you and your lab partner stay safe in class. So let's talk about a few of the different types of the common lab equipment. The first one is the test tube. There are many different sizes of test tube. Notice it's kind of like a glass cylinder. We have very large and fat ones, and we have medium-sized ones that are skinny, and then we have itty-bitty tiny ones as well. You want to make sure that you have the right size for the experiment that you're doing that's going to hold the right amount of the substance. So like I said, there's some larger ones, and they are used to mix and or heat chemicals in. So with a test tube, you're often going to use a test tube holder. It kind of looks like an eyelash curler. So this is important because you can use it to hold over a flame so your hands do not get burnt or you hurt someone else. And then we have test tube racks, and they can hold the test tube upright because they do not have a flat bottom, they're rounded. So you can put them there while you are preparing your material or let them dry. It is important when you're using test tubes and the test tube holder to point the top of the test tube away from everyone. You don't want something to shoot out the end of it. Okay. The third piece of equipment we're going to talk about today is a beaker. So beakers measure liquid volume in milliliters. They come in different sizes to use, and it's used to measure different amounts. It has a very wide mouth at the top, and you can use it to hold solids or liquids. So these come very, very large, 1,000 milliliters, 2,000 milliliters, and come as small as 10 milliliters or itty-bitty tiny ones. The next piece of equipment we're going to talk about is a burner. A burner is used for heating of non-flammable liquids and solids. You never want to put anything flammable in there because it will immediately spark another fire. We have alcohol burners that we're going to use in our classroom, but they operate the same way. The next piece of equipment is a graduated cylinder. A graduated cylinder is going to measure liquid volume in milliliters. So this can help you give a much more accurate and precise measuring than beakers. Graduated cylinders have a lot more numbers and lines on it to get you much more accurate. You can use this to measure a substance for mixing. So the little plastic mark at the top is simply in case the graduated cylinder were to fall, it would catch the glass and not break the glass. Now, just like a beaker, these come very, very large. There's very, very tall ones that go up to 1,000 milliliters or more, and itty-bitty tiny ones. When you use any type of glassware, you want to make sure that you check out the reading on it. Sometimes the lines are spaced by 2. Here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. On this one, it goes 5, 10, 15, 20. So anytime you use any glassware or any piece of equipment in lab, you want to make sure you look at the numbering. The next piece of equipment we're going to talk about is a triple beam balance. It's going to measure the mass of an item in grams. It has 3 beams that weigh in ones, tens, and hundreds grams. You've probably seen this when you go to the doctor's office. Many times when you walk into the doctor's office, they have you stand on a scale, and the nurse adjusts the weights to the left and the right to find your weight. The next piece of equipment is another glassware. It is called the Erlenmeyer Flask. It too measures liquid volume in milliliters. You can put a rubber stopper at the top to close everything off to keep it safe, but you don't want to do that if you're heating it because you don't want the popper to fly off. This is most likely going to be used when splatter can occur. So if the reaction is stirred or heated, notice it has a very narrow top. So if you do heat it, the liquid and the substance would be contained in this bottom part, unlike a beaker where it's very wide at the top. The next piece of equipment is a hot plate. We are going to use these quite frequently in class. They have a small electric device that is both used in cooking and scientific experiments. Some of you might have these at your home or your apartment that you live in. You can cook many different things on a hot plate. The next one is like a big contact lens. It's called a watch glass. It's used to hold a small amount of a solid. It can also be used as a cover for an evaporating dish or beaker, so you place it on the top and it's like a lid that you would cover with a pot or a pan. Since they may not be made of heat resistance glass, you usually don't want to heat them up because they do break very easily. So if you're using fire or flames, you want to use something different. All right, the next one is a crucible and its cover. So the crucible and its cover are used for heating solids, particularly metals, to very, very high temperatures. And if we look on this, we can see that the crucible is sitting on other devices, and we're going to talk about those in just a minute. Now, this crucible can go to very high temperatures because it's made out of clay. If you've ever done clay or ceramics, you know one of the last steps is to put it into a fire and to harden it up. So that's why this can get heated to very high temperatures. It still can break if overheated or overused, so you do want to check this prior to starting to check for cracks and other crevices. The next piece of equipment we're going to talk about are your forceps. You've probably heard these referred to as tweezers. We are going to refer to them as forceps. They're going to be used to hold or pick up small objects. You never want to touch chemicals with your hands, so you always want to use another device to do it. Some chemicals can damage your skin, so forceps are extremely important. Now here we have the ring stand. This is where we saw the crucible sitting on it. Here we can see the base of the ring stand. This is our ring stand. We have wire gauze and we have a clamp. So a ring stand is going to help you support your equipment that it's used for reactions that use a burner. So the burner would sit at the base. The base can also act as an insulating pad to place hot objects on. So if you heated a beaker, if you heated a flask, you could place it on the bottom here to cool off. Otherwise, we typically put our alcohol burners or your Bunsen burner here. The flame travels up and will heat whatever is sitting on top of here. Here we can see that there is a wire gauze, so this wire gauze would be used to put your beaker or your flask at the top. Now, if you had a clay triangle, if you had a crucible and crucibles can withstand so much heat, we could put the crucible up here with the use of the clay triangle, just like here. This is our ring stand. The clay triangle goes on the ring support and the crucible sits on top. It's used as support for the porcelain crucibles when it's being heated over a Bunsen burner. Now the crucible can go directly more in the flame because it can withstand high temperatures. Next we have a glass stirring rod. You want to use it to manually stir solutions or transfer a single drop of a solution. You never want to use your pencil or pen for a stirring rod. You want to use the stirring rods because you know your pencils or pens, you chew on the ends. This is much more safe. Sometimes a rubber scraper is also at the ends just to help you clean off the bottoms. Another piece of glassware is an evaporating dish. This is also used for heating of stable solid compounds and elements and for separating mixtures of liquids and solids. Next, we have crucible tongs. Since crucibles can be heated to very hot temperatures, we don't want to pick them up with our bare hands. We need to use some tongs in order to pick them up. You never want to pick up beakers using these because they will slide out. If we notice, the crucible tongs kind of have a diamond shaped here, so this is a good indicator to help you identify crucible tongs. A scoopula is another useful tool. It will help you scoop out chemicals from the containers. A spoon is also useful, but a spoon puts too much material on it at one time. A scoopula will limit the amount that you can take from the container and help you to be more cautious and accurate. Once again, the chemicals should never be transferred with your bare hands. You don't want to just pick them up one by one. Since we had crucible tongs, we also need beaker tongs. So these are used to move beakers containing hot liquids. If we notice, the beaker tongs have a rubber end to them. On lab experiment days, you need to bring real shoes, real brains, and your laboratory materials. You must have completed your pre-lab assignment and have it in your possession to begin class. You also need your calculator, textbook, and any class notes that are required. When you're in lab, I want you to be alert and proceed with caution. I know we'll have a fun year in lab. Just be safe.